I am so excited to be joined today by Amanda Verhoff. Since 2007, Verhoff has been leading multiple association endeavors, including the annual conference and trade show, membership, year-round education, partner activation, marketing, and internal staffing for the ALSD. Verhoff plans and executes ALSD's annual conference and trade show focused on premium seating, venue design, and fan experience. Within this role, she activates attendees and sponsors while also assisting with venue tours, where attendees experience world-class venues in hands-on setting with peers from across the globe. She selects future ALSD U.S. host cities and hotels while also helping to execute the annual ALSD International Conference. Her strong passion for industry makes her eager to serve members with education across team, venue, league, and vendor platforms in the world of sports. Verhoff is a graduate of the University of Dayton, and Amanda resides in Ohio with her family. I'm so excited for you to hear this episode with Amanda and I talking about how women are being lifted up, including Amanda herself. Enjoy. Well, hello, my friends. It's Tony Will. I am back with another episode of Women In. I have a fantastic guest today, and I'm super excited for you to get to know her. But first, let me tell you what Women In is. Boy, that's a tongue twister every time I say it. But the podcast is all about a place to celebrate women in all walks of life and the people in their lives who are lifting them up. You're going to hear from super cool people that are in my life. They're going to share their stories to inspire others to support the extraordinary women around them. This is a space to be disruptive, forward-thinking, and change agents for humankind. It's uncensored, it's fun, and it's curiosity-driven. The reason I started this podcast is because I'm passionate about this, as breaking down barriers for my kids' generation. And it's equal parts about my guests, the place where we came to know each other, and it could be with the Kalamazoo Wings, Mindfulness Elevated, or Tony Will Coaching, or they could be family or friends of mine as well. So my guest today is Amanda Verhoff, and she, and it's so fabulous because, and she'll tell you when I ask, like, where did we meet? It wasn't that long ago. So hi, Amanda.
Hi, Tony. Thank you so much. And hi to the audience as well.
Yeah, this is so exciting. So tell everyone how we met.
So I don't know that you even know the full story, right? So we met at another industry conference. I run a conference as well, but we met at the National Sports Forum. And I see Tony up on the stage doing this super panel. You know, all the lights are bright on her and she's asking these great questions. And I'm like, I want to know her. I really do. And so after the panel, I'm like, well, go meet her, you know, and I didn't. I kind of like started walking away. And then I was like, oh, there she is. And you were talking to a couple other people. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go interrupt. I don't even care. Like, I'm 41 years old. I'm an introvert, but it's time to stop being shy. And so I went up, I introduced myself. You knew who ALSD was, which was awesome. And I said, you got to come to our show. You got to be part of our tribe, our industry, our conference as well. And that's like the end of the story. We started talking more. We had you do a ALSD video feature series, 3 awesome interview features that we did together. We invited you to speak at our show, which you will do. So it was just me having a moment, seeing somebody that was a total badass and going up and, you know, quit being shy, introduce yourself to somebody who you admire and maybe want to be industry friends with. So that's how we met.
It was so cool because we were actually in a breakout session together. Remember, you brought up the book Unreasonable Hospitality.
That is where we met. It wasn't the breakout. It was before the panel. I totally forgot about that. Yes, it's so funny too. I have the book. So I listened to it on a podcast and then I went and bought it because I loved it so much. So let's rewind the tape. We actually met in the breakout. We didn't quite meet, but then we met after that.
It was all the same conference, the National Sports Forum. And I want you to tell everyone what ALSD is too, because I think we both work in the sports world. And so, but yeah, Amanda brought up that book and I'm like, oh my God, I just had finished that book. And I was like, and I spoke up next because it was a diversity, equity, inclusion breakout session. And I looked over at you and I thought, A, she's got short hair like me. I love it. B, she's wearing a headband like me. I'm like, we need to, and then I lost you because I left or whatever. And then you came up to me the next day and I'm like, Oh, I found her, or you found me, but I wanted to meet you too.
I love it.
And that book, if and I know later on I'll ask you what you're reading, and maybe that is what you're. Well, no, you already finished it, but
Well, I'll tell you that one and more. Yeah, I'm in the middle of 8,000 books at one time. So
same. See, I mean, so we're just getting to know each other, really, and it's just so cool to have met at that conference. So tell everyone what ALSD stands for and what you do.
yeah, and actually, it's funny because we've outgrown our acronym. So ALSD stands for the Association of Luxury Suite Directors. Okay, but is anybody really called a suite director anymore? No, no, not really. So anyway, the industry itself was born at the same time skyboxes were, right? So my former boss, who is now retired, founded a magazine called Skybox. He was a writer, wonderful writer, English major, was looking to put a lifestyle magazine into what were then skyboxes, right? And he kind of starts to feel his way through it. And he's like, this could be an industry, unto itself. We need to study how we sell and service and who are sitting in these suites. And born was the Association of Luxury Suite Directors. At the time, there were very few premium seats that were skyboxes that sat up at the top of the venues at one time. And there were, I think, 17 members when he founded the association. So two-prong. It's an association, year-round membership, education year-round, and then our conference, a place where we met. Our conference is in a premier city every year. So that was 34 years ago. Fast forward to now, and why we've outgrown our acronym is, yes, ALSD is branded and people know us as that, but we try to steer away a little bit from the acronym because it's premium seats, loge boxes, club seats, ledge boxes. It's funny, you and I were just talking about my conference, and we're going to do a session on call it what you want, like all these different premium names of things, like, oh my gosh, pitch box and all these creative names. And it's because there's a desire for people that are buying these entities. They want something different. The 16-person box for a corporation isn't necessarily what's moving the needle and what everybody wants these days.
Yeah, and so we're building a new arena here in Kalamazoo, and I'm on that core team. And one of the and so all those things you mentioned, like the loges, and I'm like, what are all these names? Because the arena we're in now is 50 years old. We don't have suites, so and this is something Amanda and I have talked about before offline. So this is like a whole new world for me and my staff. But now there's this and maybe this is already a thing or a terminology, but club course. So instead of a concourse, we're building a club course as a part of our new venue, and all these names, like call it what you will, it's luxury suites or. But yeah, I can see where the acronym doesn't fit anymore because we just keep getting more and more creative.
Well, but you just stumped me. I've never heard that club course. I get it now, and I'm going to have to add it to my list of things to talk about at that session. But no, you're right. And I think, again, what the ALSD is, to tie a pretty bow on it, is we try to help folks like yourselves, reach their true potential of what they can provide their guests within their facilities. And yes, primarily we do that on the premium levels, but it's also venue wide because there is a blend now of GA people coming in wanting, the Instagram moment, where we in premium seating are faced with a challenge that we have to provide something better at a higher tier. So it's not the physical location anymore that we're studying. It's the buying habits. It is the service level that we're providing. It's the food and beverage. It's all those things. So again, that's what our association studies, is the premium seating industry, and our members and attendees are going to be team and venue personnel, such as yourself, along with premium seating people, just about every professional team, large colleges, entertainment venues, minor league venues, racing venues, etc. And then also another large contingent that comes to our conference are the exhibitor sponsors, who are the true innovators in the space. So you're talking about right now your new arena where you're going to need chairs, you're going to need security system, you're going to need ingress and egress, how you get in, ticketing systems and all that, chafing dishes for your F&B, mobile carts. Well, that's also what we have within our network. And so we try to link buyers and sellers as well. So venues and product and service providers as well.
Yeah, and I came across ALSD. Well, I've been in my position now for almost a decade, but I went out to a conference 9 years ago because some of the breakout sessions, even though we didn't have suites, were very pertinent to the sports world, right? And so I'd always kind of kept an eye on the things that you were doing. And then when we announced the new arena, I'm like, okay. So I opened ALSD up to my the people that I work with in the hospitality world, and they were like, "We didn't know this existed." So they're so excited. The group keeps growing. Who's coming out to LA this summer? So the work you guys do is, and there's so many different arenas, stadiums, coliseums, whatever the cities call them, that continue to pop up in the United States. So the work that you all are doing and how to educate us and connect us with those vendors and exhibitors is just, it makes our lives a lot easier, because building one of these or remodeling, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, you've got an exciting time ahead of you, though, and I'll be honest. I feel are the lucky ones, because people in premium seating and those that work in the venue world are the best hanger outers in the world. Like, we could say, okay, our conference is in LA this year, roll out the ball and let you guys play. You come to the conference and you could be out at till 3 a.m, at a bar, hospitality area, whatever, talking about anything, getting deep into the weeds on premium seating. 3 a.m. comes, you're still there answering the bell at 8 a.m. in these sessions because you want to learn. But the thing is, and what we have learned is makes my job a little bit easier. I don't have to program so much. Put people, like-minded people, in a room and let them talk about their pain points. It's a safe space for them to do it. We have what are called league meetings. That's a sanctuary, man. They go behind closed doors and they talk about, what is unique to them and the challenges that they're having. And so, yeah, we do our best to program and keep our finger on the pulse, but it's also the people in the industry that are just so passionate about providing that good experience. So
Yeah, it is. It's very curiosity driven. Work hard, play hard.
Exactly the word I would use. Michelle Kajiwara, who is our former board president and SVP out at Crypto.com Arena, she says, I think, one of two things: be curious or interesting. So interested or interesting. She always uses that word curiosity too. So
yeah, it's definitely one of my core values, which is why I love meeting new people, right? Or why I decided on a whim one day, I'm like, I'm launching this podcast, and so. Tell me why you agreed to be on the podcast. What is? I'm sure you get invited to be on all kinds of things because you meet all kinds of cool people. But what inspired you?
I don't even have a sexy story to tell. So I don't know why you would want me on here. But I think what you said in your introduction, that we're soul sisters. We care about short hair, headbands, DE&I stuff, elevating women. And when you were launching it, I was like, no brainer. If I can add anything, I will. But I think the other reason I decided to be on is to be a conduit to helping other women. If somebody wants to look at an association or a place to come to talk about challenges or issues they're having, I'd like to, open up that door that anyone can come to me. I'm a very good listener, being the introvert that I am.
Yeah, you're a good interviewer too, because you interviewed me for some of the membership series, and you were just a pro at that. So you might be an extrovert introvert.
I think so. This industry has made me such a, whatever you just said, introvert extrovert.
Yeah. Well, but my husband's that way. He's an introvert extrovert, and anyway. So and you and I are both Midwesterners too, because you live in Ohio.
I do.
Yeah, and my husband's from Ohio too, so I think that was part. I like Ohioans, so
Midwest nice. It's a real thing.
It is. It really is. It's a real thing. So, who are the women in your life?
Yeah, so it's funny. You and I were just talking before we hit record. My mom popped over. My parents still live a couple miles away. Just an aside, I was born and raised in Dayton, Ohio. As you just said, I'm from Ohio. Never left. Actually went to college in Dayton as well. But the funny thing is, I was an airline kid. So my mom worked for the airlines. We traveled everywhere. College soccer gave me the opportunity to travel everywhere. And my job now gives me the opportunity to travel everywhere. But I was able to stay rooted in Ohio near my family, which is very important to me. So my mom just popped over, lives a couple miles away. And she's my number one. She will be there and has been, through thick and thin. And I get my competitive edge from her. You wouldn't know her. She has grace and style and class, but man, she does not like to lose. So she's the number one, and by extension, my sister being number two. I would also say that I've got now two really, really cool friend groups. I've got my really crazy college girlfriends that I played soccer with, that I'm not sure if anybody has, grown up playing sports with their soccer sisters or whatever, but I don't need to go much further and into detail, but we have a connection where, we traveled together. We were in the trenches together, blood, sweat, and tears. And that group is the funniest group of people I have ever met. So I turn to them for comic relief and support. And then my other group, which is so cool because I never thought I'd be this way, I now have my little mom friend group. So my oldest, who is a boy, he's 12, has a group of, I think it's 5 or 6 other guy friends. Some are swim, some are soccer, some are track, etc. And one of them happens to be his best friend. We formed this group, and it's now we talk about local stuff and swim team and school and the challenges that our guys are going through. And we get together in a kitchen setting, and like for 4 hours, we're like, oh my God, where did the night go? We just talk, and it's such a collegial small group, but even now our husbands are like starting to listen, and so that's kind of funny as well. But they're a really good support team, again, for the local things that go on in my life. But lastly, I would be remiss if I didn't call out the incredible industry that we work in, the sports industry. There are just too many and too many types to name in this sports industry of women who not only pour passion and enthusiasm into their jobs, but also into their people. I mentioned Michelle from crypto before. There's a couple of her, that just you gravitate towards them because while they can have fun, they'll also lift you up when you're going through something. I look at you like that now. I look at, like I said, the Jenny Stevens who I was talking to from Perkins and Will firm the other day. Like, there are just these people that you're in awe of. And sometimes I'm hesitant to reach out because I know everybody in sports is very busy. But when they reach out to me, it is a warmth, it is a calm that says, Amanda, you're meant to be in this industry. And here's what you're doing to help this industry. And one of the other people who is still in the industry is now my coach, my professional coach, Kristen Miller. I know you have a coaching business as well, but I've started with her and she's teaching me things about myself I never knew before. She has a background with the Milwaukee Brewers and now she's coaching. And man, there are so many soft skills and just intangibles that I think so many women in this industry probably have a really good foundation of, but could build upon it by studying the things that they never even knew were in their own head. It's crazy. And so I'm going through that. And she's, I'll kind of, again, tie a pretty bow on this one, but she's another one that I would definitely call out. But I think you would agree, Tony, this industry is filled with women who you're just like, whoa.
Oh, completely. And what's interesting is when I didn't realize when I started in my role as a female GM, and this was a little naive. I was in my mid 30s and I came to run a hockey franchise completely on accident. And I wasn't thinking about my gender. I wasn't thinking about anything other than it was a 40-year-old franchise at the time. It needed a lot of work and they asked me to come in there and turn it around. And I'm like, okay. But when I started to go into these board of governors meetings and I look around, it took me a couple of years, and I'm just because I was so busy trying to get the franchise itself in a better space on the business side. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, like there are no women here. And so I was like accidentally slowly like breaking the glass ceiling, but I was like, well, I want to understand what that means better. And then going to league meetings and seeing like the ratio of men to women, or going to these sports conferences just a decade ago, and it's the women it's increasing, but it's not quite where I'd like to see it. And so we're getting there, but it's like I want to see, because women sometimes can be competitive with one another, and I think that has shifted. Like we're shifting that narrative now where it's like, let's lift each other up, let's support each other. Would you agree with that?
Well, yes, and premium seating is 50-50 for the most part. But here's the, I shouldn't say but maybe the and. It's still more male dominated in sales and more female dominated in service. So yes. I see what you're saying, but now I'm starting to see a little bit of a blend. The area where I still see that divide is on the facility side more so. It's certainly in, coaching and front office, and, a lot of those are still geared towards that, but it's so cool to see that premium is split pretty 50-50. But we started a group at ALSD because we have a design and architectural track. Mm-hmm. It's called Females in Facilities, which I've told you about that, you'll be part of at our conference. And it's a smaller group because they are sometimes the only, like you said, when you were in the room with the other GMs, they're sometimes the only ones on projects and the architectural and all of that stuff. And our lady this year that's going to win our Visionary Award, Janet Marie Smith, another female in the architectural community. And yes, it is growing. But what I will say is, to your point, the desire to raise women up, I think is more powerful than it's ever been, because we've ripped the Band-Aid off about mental health and everything else, and how detrimental it is to be competitive with anybody, gender agnostic, right? Like to lift people up, man, this industry needs it. And I will say that at our conference, it's really cool to also see the sharing that goes on where you could be competitive with the Minnesota teams that are come to the conference. No, they sit in the room and they're like, here's what we do, here's what you do. Let's do it here because we have the same clients. Or teams that are in, different leagues and things like that. They just share because they're not really competing for dollars from these people. So it is a very collegial, very sharing, very lift each other up. And I'm so glad we finally got to that point because it was probably like at one point, like, no, we don't need to sit around and sing Kumbaya. Well, yeah, you do. The intangibles and like the other stuff outside of work does matter,
Well, yeah, and what you're speaking of is that emotional intelligence, right?
Yes.
And the soft skills are so important. And women naturally, research shows that we're more natural in that space, and we're men and it's just there's these gender biases, right? So it's such an interesting topic, but we're making so much progress. And you're absolutely right. The mental health, like removing the stigmas and talking about this stuff. And we all struggle with certain things, and it's okay. It's okay to be vulnerable. I'm even learning that. And so, yeah, such a great point. And you are surrounded with a lot of great women in your life.
I feel very lucky. And I'm sorry if I didn't lead with that. A lot of people aren't. I am. I have a very, very blessed life. That's cliche to say, but man, have I been just gifted a really cool life.
Well, it's what's interesting. What's a topic that's coming up as I continue to do interviews for this podcast is female friendship. And you mentioned you have two distinct female friendship groups. One that started with sports and soccer specifically, and then in motherhood. And so, how do you find as an introvert? How do you go about? I would say the motherhood side when you were creating new friendships as that identity as mom became your identity. Did you find that to be easy, or was it challenging? And how do you maintain friendships?
This may sound, I don't know, not positive, but I like geared away from like the mom groups, right? Because I was like, oh, there's like a stigma there. I don't want to be in a mom group. So I let those groups come to me, not literally come to me, but I let my son and now my daughters as well, I let them make their own friends. And I thought like, man, is one day am I going to have my girlfriends over to sit out on the porch and talk about stuff? And I thought that for years and years and years. And then all of a sudden it happened. So I just let it kind of percolate. And I became really good friends with my son's best friend. So that kind of started. And then boom, this group happened, and maintaining that is so easy. And again, I never thought I would say this because as an introvert, I don't need a lot of friends. I can deal with my mom, my husband, my kids, a couple other people and be just fine. But what I have found is let those people feel what you're feeling, laugh when you laugh, and then you end up learning stuff, right? And that's where one of the joys of friendship is the curiosity and the learning piece, right? The 6 girlfriends that I have that are now in this mom group, if you will, I learned stuff about local events that are going on, how we sign our kids up for, certain band instruments. Okay, my kid got a detention today, but then someone else took him into the office and, worked it out with him and took him, to his therapist or, like just these things that you learn. Holy cow, there's so much support there. And even if you let it come to you, maybe try to accept it once it's there for you, kind of laid out on a pretty platter. But again, don't force it. Because I feel like if you force it, you're gonna probably meet people that you're like, I shouldn't become friends with that one. So let the good ones come.
I love that because it's like when you're dating, if you're like a husband hunter, and if you're looking for him, it's not going to happen. But when you least expect it, that's when. And ask me how I know. I've been married 3 times, so and you may not know that about me, but
no, I don't.
Yeah, and trust me, that's not how I thought my life would go, but it is, and the third time's the charm, as they say.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
and it was
awesome.
organic because when we met, I did not think that A, I was going to get married again, and B, I did not think it would be off Tinder. And here we are.
No way.
Yeah.
The power of technology.
Oh, 100%. Because my first two marriages, that what technology wasn't a thing
Yeah.
then, right? And
Yeah.
so, yeah, that's a whole other. We could have a whole other podcast on that one. I
I
mean,
was going to say the beauty of technology, but also the risks in it now. But I'm telling you, we're more efficient now. I'll tell you that.
yeah. Oh, for sure. So the women in dot dot dot, the name of this podcast. How would you fill in the blank for you? What are you a woman in?
Well, first and foremost, premium seating is my identity, right? So I've worked for ALSD for 17 years. So there is no other experience professionally that I've had that I could fill in the blanks with that. So premium seating is where I would go with that one.
Okay. And then, like, on your personal life, what would woman in motherhood, woman in family? Where would you? What identity would you, if you had one?
Gosh, women in weirdness. I say that a little tongue in cheek, but
I love it.
I will say that my identity is not necessarily just my family or just being a wife or just coaching, but it's encouraging people to understand that it's okay to be weird and unique and yourself. So I don't know how you would describe that and women in, but women in our own bodies or comfortable in our own bodies, something like that. I encourage all my own kids, my soccer team, anybody who I'm teaching in any way, be weird. Everybody's weird. So embrace it. Who wears a headband besides you and me? It's weird, right? So
I
embrace
know.
it. Some people are going to look at you funny, but some people are going to be like, that's really cool. And it's usually the Starbucks baristas that looks at us and they're like, yeah, what's going
We,
on?
yeah, yeah, it is so true. It's so true. And I love women in weird. I love that. I love good alliteration too. So,
So do
um,
I. Oh my gosh. We seriously, we are soul sisters. I
we
love a good
are, we
alliteration.
are. Oh my gosh, it's so cool. So, what are you passionate about these days? What is something that you are just like you could talk about forever?
Yeah, well, I think it's a nice segue from the women in weird, to be honest with you. Because for me, now having children that are still at a very impactful age and still listen, it is encouraging them to be okay with who they are. And that is sometimes easier said than done. Because when my son is talking about movies and actors for the 50 millionth hour in a day, and I'm like, bro, I cannot listen to any more of this, I got to check myself and be like, that's what he cares about. With my girls, I have to tell them, listen, here's what's going to happen. In a few years, there is a little bit of a divide still gender wise, and here's what you're going to go through. But it's okay. We're at a time and place where you need to be okay being a female and doing this and being different. And so my passion lies in teaching that next generation, specifically my kids, that it is okay and encouraged to be different. And with being different, there is a sameness. And I don't remember the exact quote, but I think it was near inauguration. Dr. Joe Biden said something about our differences are make us the same or something along those lines. And so I'm really passionate about that. And by and large, inclusivity as well, because again, everybody marches to the beat of their own drum. And I think there's a good reason for us to all be different, because if we were all the same, what's the fun in that?
So boring.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. And I'm passionate about obviously very similar things. And one of the things, a book I just finished reading talked about unique ability. And so I actually used some of that in a sales training I did for my staff around let's uncover what your unique ability is. But how I did it
Love
was
that.
I had because we work together in the front office and all the time. So I had the room go around and talk about one person at a time and tell that person what their unique ability is because it's really
Oh,
hard to see
cool.
ourselves, right? You could see just the positivity and they didn't even see themselves in that way. And so then they were able to take what they learned from their peers and create, just a sentence or two about what their unique ability was and then how does that waterfall into how they sell, right? So I
Mm,
started to connect to that way, and it was such a fun exercise, and I made it up on the spot, but I'm like, this is cool, like
really?
the unique ability I got from the book, but I'm like,
Yeah.
well, it's like if someone were like, what's your unique ability? I could sit here and you and I could probably say about ourselves, but I think it's easier if we did it for each other because we see each other more clearly than we see ourselves.
Your unique ability is what you're doing right now, which is lifting up women and doing it in a way that is Like you're like the coolest person in the world starting this podcast. So there you go. I'll lift you up. Your unique ability is to connect people and lift them up and support them. So
Oh my God. Well, and see, I would say your unique ability is I think you're more extroverted than you give yourself credit for, but I just love that the friendships you have made have been so long term. And then you've worked like you have a long term commitment to a lot of things. Your career, 17 years in one place. I don't know how long you've been married to your husband, but I'm going to guess he's your first husband and only husband.
yes, that's accurate.
Yeah, so you have this unique ability that you bring these pieces of loyalty, commitment, and perseverance. I think that what a great
Oh,
combination.
and I would have never thought that, right? But now I'm like, oh, I guess that does make sense. And
Hmm.
I think another thing that you and I have in common too is the health and wellness piece. And that has been something I have had my entire life. So, and that started with sports, and
Same.
that's, so, and I do, I have a calendar sitting right here that has, today was the 302nd day straight that I've worked out without taking a day off, like running and all that. And so it's the longevity piece. Like, yeah, that is me. All right, cool. I'll take it.
100%. And I love that you track it because I track my stuff too. It's right.
What's
It
wrong
is
with
right
us?
here. Yeah. And so my goal is 292 workouts this year.
Nice.
So how I got that number was 80% of the year. You just do
Okay.
the math. And when you and I met, I was still in a boot because I broke my
Yes.
ankle in December in three places. And I was like, I'm still going to get these fucking workouts in.
Yeah.
And so I was doing all different hurt foot fitness and all this stuff, but I was like, it was such a great gift to break my ankle. But
Well,
I love that you have these same goals because we are both very passionate about health and wellness, longevity.
all of those things. And it's a little bit of ego. We would like to beat our chest that we did it today. I am not shy whatsoever in saying that I also thrive on success and ego. I think all of us do to some extent, and it makes some of us tick. Whereas others, my middle daughter, she is her heart is so big. And I'm like, I am not that. But I'm good. Whenever I have success, I feel good about myself, and then I'll make you feel good about yourself. So,
Well, it's funny. It must be a middle child thing because my son is our middle child, and he's like that. And
it's
we're
not.
so
I'm a middle child. Let's be clear.
okay. See, I'm not. I'm the oldest. So our kiddos, our generation.
Yep.
But my
No doubt. That's funny.
so one of the things I talked about when you interviewed me for the ALSD membership spotlight was we talked about health and wellness, but I've changed my mind on a lot of things, and I'm going to connect this here in a second. But the low hanging fruit for me was I changed my mind about my relationship with alcohol. I've changed my mind about my relationship with eating meat. I'm a vegetarian now. Like I've changed my mind about a lot of things. But what have you changed your mind about lately?
Well, first of all, and again, I don't mean this like to be funny, but I do think of you just about every time I drink now. Tony's not doing it. you know, I have
It's
not
not
given
to
up
guilt
alcohol.
you.
No, it's right. But I've not given up alcohol. I'm not strong enough yet, but maybe one day. So this is interesting with my whole coaching experience. I was always thinking like, man, this breathing is such bullshit. Like, I don't need to deep breathe. What does that do for me?
Mhm.
She has us do these exercises and has also told us the science behind, all right, there's fight or flight. There's reasons why you need to, okay, take a deep breath in and out. And it was almost an annoyance at the beginning. I'm like, I don't need to do this breathing shit again. And I've started to do it more, and I've started to do it on my own outside of coaching. And I've also taught my soccer team to do it. And it's a little bit more of the visualization stuff. But what happens is it does bring you to a place where I don't think you can necessarily get everything out of your mind except for what you're experiencing right then. But it brings you, I think, to a calm, right? So my soccer team, they're a bunch of 10 and 11-year-old girls. They like to touch, talk, laugh, bounce around. And so I let them do that before games. I let them bounce around and get their jokes out. Everybody has a joke, whatever. And I let them do that. And then I started doing just very recently 5 deep breathing. And then once we're finished, we have our eyes closed, then we open our eyes and we say to ourselves, what is the one thing that's going to help my team succeed today? And they can tell me if they want or not, but it gives them that opportunity to kind of get to equilibrium. What am I going to do? Okay, I got all my willies out, and now I'm going to think, what can I do to succeed? And I'm trying to get them to understand these little things because I didn't really believe in that stuff before, right? But I'm trying to get them to know there's a way to stabilize yourself and your emotions and everything else. So that's the one thing that I've changed my mind about, because I have seen actual, not just tangible, but actual results from focusing on breathing.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more because I've changed my mind in that space, and also like meditation and just these different mindfulness tools when we talk about mental health, and it works. And like you said, the research backs it. And I'm just picturing all these 10 and 12 year old 10, 11, 12-year old girls, and they do have a ton of energy, but what you're teaching them, oh, that is so cool. I love that.
Trying to
And
pay it
so
forward.
yeah, well, and one of my other questions here, I'm going to jump over one of these because how do you support other women or young girls? Like, and I mean, coaching certainly, and what you're teaching them there is one of those things.
uh, I never ever, and maybe it's something, the second thing I changed my mind about, I never wanted to be a coach. I never thought that that was going to be a calling for me. I do both basketball and soccer, generally for my girls, but then, if possible, for my boy in track as well. I have found that to be such a gift because, like we're talking about, our generation, our next generation, sky's the limit for them. We're starting to see more acceptance and things like that. And this next generation, I think if they can, get their act together with the whole technology piece, I think can be that conduit to making it be a better world, to,
Mhm.
include people, to be present, to focus on goals in a different way, perhaps, than we ever did. And so paying it forward is very important to me with this next generation of young women. I want them to understand too, because I was weird growing up, and not like, yeah, I was popular and had a lot of friends and played a lot of sports, but I was weird too, and my parents let me be weird. And at
Mhm.
sometimes I'm like, I really wish they would have not let me wear an Arizona State basketball uniform, tall socks, and blue lipstick to school that one day, right? Like I thought it was the shit that day, but I really wish my parents would have been like, scale that back a little bit. They didn't. They let me be me, and I think it ended with me being who I am today. But I want these girls to have so much confidence that they're okay in their own skin. I just don't think there's enough people teaching that these days, that they can be okay. And when they're okay, they can accept others, even if they're different.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I so get that. I laugh about what I'm wearing today because I look like I'm from the 80s, but I love wearing like jumpsuits and neon, and I was like that as a kid too, and it just always had and I was I was different, but and I was popular too, but I definitely colored outside the lines, and that, as I like to say, and that's bled into my adult life.
No doubt.
But it did cause me at times to feel like whatever story I was telling myself, that different didn't necessarily mean good,
Yeah.
like that I was a black sheep, and I told myself that story for a long time, and that's not true. I know that now, but I'm almost 46 years old, so I've done the work to get there. And so, for our kids, knowing that, we embrace wherever they're at, and not make it like, a bad thing. Not that
Yes.
your parents did or mine did, but
Oh, no.
our
Again, my parents let me
society.
go out of the house like that, knowing I was going to turn out okay.
Exactly. My parents did the same. They're like, "Oh, that's Tony,"
Mm-hmm.
And
Exactly.
it's our culture is more embraces the unique ability, the weirdness, and which I love that you and I are both doing that for in our different spaces.
Yeah,
So,
and it's not
and
always, I'm not always on that soapbox. I have times where that's not, the critical thing to me, but when I get in that space, I am very passionate about it.
And I love how you said that coaching is a calling. It's interesting, this notion of calling, because I feel like that. I never thought I'd have a podcast. Actually, I was like anti podcast. Not that I would listen to it, but I'm like, everyone's doing a podcast. I'm not going to do it. And then all of a sudden I'm doing it, right? And so I've definitely changed my mind on that. But it definitely feels like more of a calling. And it's fun, right? And I'm going to be making a difference. And that's probably one of the reasons it feels like a calling to you, because you're making a difference.
Well, that, and you're good at it, right? I'm not saying I'm good at coaching, but like you're good at this, right? Because you know how to connect with people. And I don't think a lot of that happens all of a sudden. I think there's a natural progression and a maturing of getting to the place where you actually can do a podcast. You had to have a lot of life experiences probably before you got to that point. And I don't think I would have been cut out to teach children or anything like that. until I went through life experiencing. Like, I don't think I was even present in my own life till I turned 30, like just kind of skated through, but if you pay attention to all those experiences, then you end up with a really, really important podcast.
Yeah, yeah, I'm excited. It'll be cool to see what it turns out to be. So a couple more questions. I want to know one of the things we connected over and we mentioned earlier on was reading. What books are you reading right now?
Yeah, so I showed you Unreasonable Hospitality. So it's funny because I listened to that on the way to Pittsburgh to the conference that we were at. And I'm like, just put it on for a little bit and turn it off when I get bored, right? Because it was about a 3.5 hour drive for me. I couldn't turn it off. And so I was like so excited to get back in my car and drive home to listen to the rest of it. And I was like, I got to order this. So I got the physical book. So Will Guidara, look him up. Wonderful book. That is an industry book that I would recommend to anyone. For everyone else too, sure, but for industry, 100%. So I'm not currently reading that, but have finished it recently. One that I'm listening to right now, and I'm laughing because she makes me laugh. I listen to it when I'm running sometimes, and I do not advocate for it. You said the word, so I'm okay saying it, I think. Leslie fucking Jones. It's her autobiography. Oh my God, and she reads it. Do you know who Leslie Jones is?
I do, and I'm a big fan of swearing. It is my one vice that I have left.
Well, I have two, alcohol, but
Yeah.
I swear way too much. And my soccer kids have been like, coach.
I love swearing. They say smart people swear. That's what research
Then
says.
we're geniuses.
We are. You and I are geniuses.
But
Okay,
I'll tell
so
you,
I'm writing that down. Leslie
well, so
Jones.
Leslie fucking Jones. Yes. So I'm listening to that, and it's funny because sometimes I'm in my car and I get in my car and it's still on when my kids get in there. So that's one. But then I go all over the map, right? I just finished, which is so weird too, because, and again, whatever your political affiliation is, fine, whatever. But I listened to Michelle Obama's second book. I had done her first one, started listening to her second one. Very apprehensive about it because the way I read the trailer of it was that it was a self-help book. And I was like, I don't need to have her teach me all that stuff. I can go to other authors for that. But I'm listening to it, and it's all of her anecdotes and she's reading it as an audiobook. And I just loved, there's just so much, like, as women, critical things in that book that, like, oh God, this is touching my heart. So I wanted to go running so I could put that one in. So just finished that one. And then the last one that I'm currently listening to on audiobook, which I'll probably also order, is Atomic Habits. And it is, I'm only a quarter of the way through. The philosophy of setting habits versus goals, I think, is so important, especially for young people, because you set a goal and either you meet it, great, now what, or you don't. Ugh, right? But setting habits, oh my gosh, that's setting you up for a lifetime of keep on going. There is no stopping point there. So maybe you've also read or listened to that one too.
Oh yeah, I have it over here in my bookshelf, and it is the only book where I have so many tabs on it because there was so much, and I use it when I coach clients, or for myself. It is a fabulous book, and I will send you one of the podcasts that I listened to recently. I can't remember who interviewed it. It may have been Peter Attia, but James Clear. He's been on a lot of podcasts, but it is an excellent book. I could not agree with you more.
Yeah. Well, and reading too, sometimes during my busy spring conference time, like I'm working a little bit more than probably I would like to be. And so I don't sit down and actually read, but I have found that to turn the music off. If you're going for a 30-minute drive, turn that book on instead. No, I'm not learning a different language or anything like that, but I'm getting something out of these books every time. I'm going on a short flight. Cool. Put it in. So either physical book or audiobook, it's a little bit about building the habit of doing that versus something else. And I get into this, habit, probably like everybody else, is scrolling on my phone. And last night I was like, enough of that. And so I started another one, yet another book called Fierce Conversations. And it releases, probably like a chemical too that helps you sleep because you're not looking at your stupid phone, or doesn't release a chemical, whatever it is. But I just started that just to pick up little things. And the thing that I would stress that is a bit of an aside to young people, again, I truly feel like I just floated my way through my first 30 years. I wasn't present. I wasn't passionate. I was really good at sports. And again, maybe that's an ego thing, but I was just like really good and it came naturally. And so I just did it and that's what I did, but I wasn't present thinking like, what could I do for my mind that would make me better? How can a book make a difference for me. It's funny, my kids always make fun of me because I cheated on Book It. Book It, where you get a free pizza.
Oh yeah, I remember it. Yeah.
Okay. So, but that's like that's like the epitome of why I didn't learn, because I cheated on Book It, Anyway, so like I would teach that younger generation, knock it off. You can have friends, you can have fun, you can do all those things, but just stop at some point. Get your mind, be present, read books, study, get to where you are happy with who you are, hitting the pillow at night. Again, I wish I had been present in my own life well before I was, because once I did become more extroverted. I did start learning more. I did start feeling like, okay, I can sit in a room with Tony now because I do have things to say and maybe other things to learn. So
you sure do. Well, as we wrap up, where can people find you if they want to connect with you?
Amanda at alsd.com is going to be the easiest. That is my work address. Again, the acronym ALSD. Also LinkedIn. And yeah, I think those are probably the best two ways professionally. I don't do a whole lot on Instagram anymore. I'm on there a lot, but I don't post too much. So nothing too sexy to see on my social accounts, but we can be friends nonetheless.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Amanda, for coming on. And I loved learning more about you and just all the work you're doing. I look forward to seeing you in person this summer. And I'll be in touch, of course, when we launch this bad boy. So
I can't wait. I can't wait for this to come out. And I hope that you build a tribe that can then expand and help other women. So what you're doing is so admirable, Tony. And I just appreciate you having me on. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.